What's up, everybody? It's your boy, the Italian Stallion, here for another episode of Rebels with a Cause. How's everybody doing tonight out there in Marble City, out there in Westmoreland Hills and Estates, all over Mechanicsville, down Middlebrook to West Hills, up Kingston Pike back to Sequoia Hills? How is everybody doing? Rocky Hill. I want to hear everybody from afar, whether you're watching live or recorded, because you know it's time for Rebels with a Cause. Wednesday night, 9 o'clock, my favorite part of the day, part of the week. It's getting you over the hump day, getting you into the weekend, and we've got an action-packed show tonight. We're going to talk about this bracket behind us. A lot of chalk, and of course the Rebels with a Cause 2 bracket did not do so well, but hey, let's see if we can redeem ourselves with this unbelievable weekend of games. And of course, when I bring on my brother and my co-host, and we're going to rib him a little bit, and we're all going to wish him a very, very big happy birthday. He just turned 40 over the weekend, and I'm glad the Vols didn't let him down and got to the Sweet 16, and even his Tar Heels got to the Sweet 16, which we really didn't think would be a problem for them. But he had a great weekend and a great birthday weekend, and of course we're going to celebrate it. And I hope that the people watching will wish him a happy birthday and bring the love like they did for me when it was my birthday a couple of weeks ago. But we got some spring sports to talk about. Soccer team doing really good, baseball team young and growing, and we'll discuss that. But we'll definitely talk about the tournament and everything you guys want to talk about. That comment box, definitely check it out. Also, if you're watching it recorded, still put comments in there. I love going back and answering and so forth. That's what we're here for. We're here to have a good time and talk not only Rebel sports, but this wonderful March Madness that's halfway over already. 64 teams. I mean, you talk about the first four, but 64 teams came in with a dream, and now it's down to 16. And by about 7:30, 8 o'clock Sunday night, we'll be down to the final four. So, it just goes by so fast, and you just have to enjoy that moment, just like the guys that are playing and the coaches that are coaching it. So, but we'll get into that. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Miss Kim Castle over at King's Chamber there on Washington Pike. Definitely give her a call, and she's getting close to opening up here in a month. But in the meantime, she can still do haircuts, beard trims, waxes. You can have a nice beverage while you're there, and just enjoy some good music and converse with her. She's wonderful. So go check her out, King's Chamber. She takes care of the Italian Stallion every week, getting me ready for this show. Also, my boy Alex Thatcher over at the Knoxville Coffee Company there in the heart of Marble City there off Sutherland Avenue. Him and his dad, they've been making that brew for a couple years now. You won't be disappointed. It will definitely give you that shot in the morning you need to get through your day, or maybe even just maybe you need to get that third shift in and always brew that coffee then and so forth to get you through them long work hours. So definitely a shout out to Mr. Alex Thatcher, his father, in the Knoxville Coffee Company there off Sutherland Avenue. And my boy Terry Maples on the Level Construction and Remodeling. Definitely Facebook message him. I'm sure he would do a project for you and make it and do it with a lot of love, just the way he always does. He puts his heart into everything like a true rebel with a cause. So thanks again to On the Level Construction and Remodeling. And last but not least, just remember that the views and opinions of this program are not affiliated with those of any other organization or West High School. These are just the views of myself, the Italian Stallion, and to Pair Tate. With that being said, let's get this show rocking and rolling. And as you can see there, and I love bragging about it, 5A champions still for 481 days and counting. WrestleMania next weekend. Shout out to the tribal chief Roman Reigns, being champion for over 1,300 days. Don't know if The Rock is going to get involved and help Cody win that thing, but stranger things have happened, especially when it's not Vince in charge anymore. Got to get my wrestling plug, and we can always talk that next week. Always love my wrestling and so forth. But that being said, I got to bring somebody on here, and the reason I got to bring him on is because he is my boy. He is my co-host. He is my brother. He just celebrated a birthday, turning the big 4-0, and as a matter of fact, his new nickname is 40 Water Tizzle. I hope I said that right. Hope I didn't embarrass myself too much. He is the voice of the Rebels. Should be the voice of the Vols, but we ain't going to get into that. Voice of the Rebels for 18 plus years. He is also the 2003 Mr. West. So give him the respect he deserves. Give him that love for that birthday weekend he just celebrated. The one, the only, Pair Tate, Brian Tate. Let's bring him on, ladies and gentlemen.
What's happening? What's going on?
Oh, brother. I mean, I hope you had a fantastic weekend. I know the teams didn't let you down, at least. Now our bracket picks let us down. I mean, some teams,
bracket. That's why I was picking a lot of opposites. I said, ain't no damn way some of this stuff is happening in these brackets.
You know, Pair, I know we're going to delve into it, and obviously we want the comment box to be hopping and so forth. So definitely put your comments. Don't be hiding. Put whatever you want out there. But we're going to get into it, but I have not seen this much chalk in a Sweet 16. And yeah. I'm going to be honest with you, there's not one bad game, in my opinion. I mean, it's almost a shame that you have two at the same time. I know they're spaced out a little bit, but dang, man, it's almost like I need two TVs in front of me just to make sure that I'm watching all the action, because any of these teams are worthy to not only get to the Elite Eight, but also the Final Four if things go their way, in my opinion. So
yeah, man, really interesting games. I think the games that are interesting me the most would probably be the rematch of the national championship game. I thought that's wild that they even were in the same region, you know, and for them to see each other in the Sweet 16. UConn and San Diego State. That's gonna be a game to really watch. Like, that was gonna be big.
And the two coaches and a lot of those players from that game return. I mean, I know they lost some, but the majority of those teams are coming back, and that's really unheard of to see that in the following year. So yeah,
it's really unheard of. I really like what NC State has done thus far. Like, to get in the position that they are in after beating Oakland, which I think a lot of us had Kentucky in our brackets.
They had them in the Final Four. I mean,
that might have been the biggest shocker of the tournament for me early, is Kentucky. Like, I thought Kentucky was good enough to at least get to the Sweet 16. The SEC as a whole was a major letdown.
Huge down.
And the team that let me down the most is Mississippi State. Like,
they were a complete no-show.
How do you go from blasting UT in Nashville to lay an egg against Michigan State?
Yeah, I mean, let me just throw this out there too, Pair. I mean, obviously, we're going to get into it, and I want the chat box to definitely talk about which teams disappointed you. Where did your bracket bust? I am proud to say that I got 11 of 16 teams in or whatever, but the Kentucky game probably hurt me the most, and we'll get into it. I want to talk a little West sports because you have a big announcement to announce tonight as well. Shout out to our boy Michael Lynn. He's back. I hope he had a great cruise with the fam. I saw the pictures. It looked like it, but he wanted to make sure that we got welcome to the old club, both of us. It's my birthdays.
I'm in the same club with Michael Lynn. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Hey, I'm just blessed to make it, man. Like we've said so many times on this show, so many brothers, sisters as well, lost along the way too soon, you know. So, and shout out to my guy Shane McGee. Just if you don't follow him or are friends with him on Facebook, the guy just beasts in the weight room, man. I mean, he's lifting some stuff up there. Do not mess with this guy. I know that if I need a bar like Superman, that's the guy I'm calling to help me fix a pipe or something, because he's just a beast in the weight room. Leg day, arm day, he don't skip a day, man. Simple as that. So, yeah.
I thought the probably one of the best games of the tournament might be that Oregon and Creighton game. That was one of the best games.
And it was a late game too, after so much basketball, it kind of was a nice nightcap. I mean, and then to be fair, you had that with A&M in Houston, but that wasn't even the late game on Sunday. That game was a snoozer with San Diego State and Yale. And what the hell happened to Bruce Pearl and Auburn? I thought this was a team built for March, Two-Pair. I know I don't like the guy, but he said that.
He said that, and then the fact that they win the SEC. After all what happens in the SEC, Auburn wins.
Yeah.
Auburn wins the SEC. It was really Tennessee's to lose, and I really think that stings a little bit for those guys, and I think that's what kind of sparked the 2-game resurgence we see. But the Texas game, they shot abysmal. That's one of the worst shooting games. But you look at a guy like Toby Awaka, who played inspiring basketball. You need guys to be aggressive like that.
I will say this, because we'll talk about that Tennessee game. If that was the stinker game for Dalton and yet you still won or whatever, better to have it against that opponent in the second round than a complete meltdown in the Sweet 16, where I've seen so many higher seeds, and by higher seeds, I mean the favorites, like a 1 or a 2, just completely collapse against a 3 or a 4 seed, in that manner. So maybe they just got it out of their system. You know what I mean? That's what I'm hoping for. So, yeah.
And the one thing that's surprising about this region is the only lower the 4 seed lost to the 5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really consider Gonzaga beating Kansas an upset, though.
Two-Pair Kansas. I'm gonna tell you this. You made a comment last week, and it was like, is Kansas playing possum? And Kansas should have lost to Samford. There was that controversial call with that referee. I mean, the guy didn't even hit him. It was all ball. And you make a call from that far away. I think you swallow the whistle and let that play out, man. Honestly.
I think the way the foul looked, because Timberline, if you've watched Kansas, he's kind of played erratic.
Mm-hmm.
And his best game of the tournament was that game. I don't think it was a foul. I think that was a bang call. And the way Timberlake, I don't want to say his name wrong.
Mm-hmm. I think it's Timberlake. So
Timberline? Yeah. Is it? I thought it was Timberline.
It might be. So, yeah, a little bit of banter between Michael and Shane real quick. Michael, I've got 2 teenage daughters. I've got to intimidate their boyfriend somehow. Oh, they shouldn't mess with that. So, yeah. Kansas was limping in. Yeah, they were. I'm going to tell you this. Last year, when Hunter Dickinson decided to not go to the NBA, he took the NIL deal. A lot of people were going for him. I said to somebody, I said, he's a cancer, man. Talented player maybe – in NBA 30 years ago, but not in today's game would he fit, in my opinion. And
he came up with shots, though. He came up with shots. But no, he kind of saw that in Michigan. He kind of saw that there. Hence to why he went to Kansas. Kansas was preseason number 1.
They were, man. They were.
And they just could not, they couldn't get healthy. They struggled in the Big 12. Like, when have you ever seen Kansas struggle with, of course, they've been back and forth with Baylor, but to the point of they're losing to Iowa State. They're losing those
teams.
Got
blown off the court by Houston by 30 points. So,
30.
Yeah.
I tell you, the surprise of the tournament, my surprise of the tournament is probably Clemson.
You read my mind, Two-Pair. You read my mind. I mean, do you want to know something? In my bracket, and I filled out a few. I filled out 9, which was low for me.
I had Clemson in a few brackets.
Do you want to know something? I didn't pick them in one. Because I watch a lot of ACC basketball, and I thought they were a team that had so much potential. Brad Brownell was on the hot seat. People talk about Kevin Keats and NC State. I mean, at least they won the tournament. Clemson got bounced.
They've won 7 games in 10.
7 in like 11 days, something insane like
crazy.
That. Yeah. And here's the thing, and to my point, I thought BYU would beat Duquesne. That was a 6-11. I thought that Texas Tech would beat NC State because I thought NC State was gassed. That was a 6-11 game.
I thought NC State would win.
You did. In the 6-11 game with South Carolina and Oregon, I know we picked South Carolina here, but I'm proud to say that I had Oregon in that bracket because I had mentioned Dana Altman has never lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
You're right. I picked South Carolina because my thing is I thought South Carolina was so much better than the way they played.
Yeah.
They were so much better this year. When they played Tennessee, they look like world beaters.
Yeah.
When Tennessee clinched in South Carolina, you're thinking, okay, South Carolina might make a run at a Sweet 16. They don't even get out of they lost 87-73.
And their former player who transferred to Oregon had the game of his life and scored 40 points and bounced them. Their former player went, if that's just makes you sick to your stomach.
And then it gets better. Michie Johnson now is asking to transfer.
Their leading scorer. So who's going to get him? So,
Tell me you're the guy. You guys lose by 14.
It wasn't even close. They were dominating that game. Yeah.
It wasn't close. Like South Carolina upset me. That upset me.
I'm going to tell you this. To be fair, you talk about the SEC that was disappointing. I would say the Big 12 was maybe more disappointing, to be honest with you. I think because they each had 8 bids, okay? And let me just tell you this. If Texas A&M practiced free throws, they would be in the Sweet 16, not Houston. How in the world do you get 45 free throw attempts and you miss 16 of them? Even if they make if they miss half of those and make it just 8 that they missed, two pair, they're still dancing in Dallas while Houston's wondering why they were the first number 1 seed bounced.
Yeah.
That's the thing that just gets me.
Houston goes through periods where they can't score.
Yeah.
Houston goes through those periods. They're not the best jump shooting team. They're gonna pound it inside.
Their guard play dictates. Their 3-headed guard play dictates everything. Defense causing turnovers, physicality to go in offense or what have you. So,
they do play defense. What's interesting
is the NIT still around? Troy Smith, shout out to big Troy Smith, baby. So he went over to the Final Four yet too.
I hope Indiana State wins that whole thing.
They should.
I do. Yeah. I do, because Indiana State should be in the tournament. Indiana State should be in the tournament.
I think they should have been in the tournament. I think a couple more Big East teams should have been in the tournament, like Seton Hall. So,
what the hell was Virginia doing?
Yeah.
Virginia was a huge question mark.
They stink.
They stink. Virginia stinks. Horrible.
So, we'll I'll tell you this. We'll get back to the tournament. Let's get the Rebels with the Cause West stuff. I don't want to say out of the way because obviously this is the spring sports and those kids put all their heart into everything. Mm-hmm. I couldn't quite make it out last night to the soccer game against Fulton. Bad weather, and I had some obligations at work that went a little over. I am going to try to catch a game next week. But I'm proud to announce that they did beat Fulton 3-0 last night. Nick Jackson was the player of the game. He scored 2 goals. The second goal was assisted by Josh Dickerson. So West soccer team did really good. And that was coming off of a great showing at the Smoky Mountain or the Bearden Invitational that they participated in 3 games in 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thursday they lost to Science Hill 3-1, but they bounced back to beat Notre Dame 2-0. Julio Garbarino, I hope I said his name right, or maybe it's Julio Garbarino. If I'm doing the Spanish correct, 2 goals for him. He was the player of the game, and then he was the player of the game the next day when they beat Alcoa 2-0, and he scored 2 more goals in that one. So West in the last 4 games they've won 3 of 4, and they've got a tough one on Saturday against Farragut. And I just don't know how the schedule came to be, but they're going to be celebrating their senior night next week on Tuesday night at 6:30 there at Bill Wilson Field, April the 2nd against Gatlinburg Pittman. So I'm hoping to catch that game and honor those seniors that have done really good for the West soccer team the last few years. So, definitely want to do that. So for sure. So, yeah. Baseball had a rough week. We talked and laughed about them beating Union County last week. Well, what goes around kind of comes around. I hate to say it.
Yes,
they ran into a buzzsaw too, Pair. Number 2 team in the country, not the state, the country.
Not the
The
state.
Farragut Admirals showed them what baseball was all about, beating them 27-3 last Wednesday. So, and there's a lot to dissect from that, and there is such a thing as a hangover from losing that bad at home, and sadly, that carried over to Powell losing 9-3. Then it carried over to Hardin Valley on Monday, losing 4-1. And their game with Maryville not only got delayed last night, but it got moved to Maryville. And unfortunately, they lost another heartbreaker, 5-1, another district game. So baseball team young, a couple of seniors, very young Ladin team, and hopefully they can get it together. Just very, very tough schedule, very tough region. But I am hoping that you and I, if the schedule and the stars align, can possibly be there for a live show as the West baseball team honors the only district tournament title team to win in 1994. They're playing Bearden that night. Coach Lindsay and that team will be honored, I believe, before the game. And I'm hoping maybe I can get a couple of the guys to stick around and maybe even be interviewed by us live on the show if everything works out, weather permitting, and if we get permission from everybody. But that'd be pretty cool to be Rebels with a Cause live from Lindsey Hawkins Stadium, celebrating the one and only district tournament baseball team there with Coach Lindsay and those guys from 1994. 30-year anniversary. 30-year anniversary. And that's on the 17th of April, coming up on Wednesday. So in a few weeks.
Next year, my sister will have been out of high school 30 years. So my sister is class of 95.
So there you go. So.
And a lot of guys that were on that team, one of the best basketball players on that team was also a great pitcher, Shot Broyles, who man, you want to talk about, he was one of the first guys I remember to go in the West. Like before Marlon Bussell, I think I heard about Marlon Bussell when I was in elementary school, probably like 5th grade. But Shad Broyles, I knew him from the neighborhood, Mechanicsville, and I always saw him play basketball. That dude was lights out, man. Like Shad Broyles, Andre Cross, all those guys from that era. Great era of basketball.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, and that's cool that they're honoring them. And I'm glad that they are honoring the baseball team. And that's why I really hope that they do honor the basketball team for their 25-year anniversary, of the district tournament championship in basketball with Mike Morrow and those guys that we've been talking about. So
yeah, man, that would be really cool because that team was a really talented team. Like you got a senior point guard and Spencer Davis. His backup is a sophomore point guard of class of 2002 and Stuart Oaks. You look at Michael Maddox, Morrow, Alton Thompson, Troy Mapp, Bubba Childress off the bench. You know what I'm saying? Just a really talented group of guys. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And people forget Jordan Smith was hurt. And if they
Jordan
had
Smith was hurt. Yeah, because his picture's in a suit in that when they celebrated that picture I had behind me.
if
So.
Jordan Smith never hurts his jaw, like think of how deep that team would have been. Like him off
They,
as a
they maybe beat Sevier County and win the region. Go on to win the region and get to sub-state. That would be the, So yeah.
and then like, he was really that year he was, coming into his own. Um he was in that dunk contest. Just that team, man. That's one of those teams that just clicked at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if those dudes were healthy all year, they would have went deeper. I think that team had the talent to go state.
They
You know,
did, and they should be honored, and hopefully Romero will make that happen for a
I
game
think
next year and so
I think
forth. So,
I think Romero is doing a fantastic job as athletic.
amazing athletic director at West. Amazing
I
athletic.
feel like there was no drop off from
Mm-mm.
Poisel to Romero. There's been no drop off from Carruthers to Poisel to.
Mm-hmm.
There's not been a drop off. I actually think Romero is doing a great job in all the sports. Like
Mm-hmm.
personable. He'll tell you what's good, what's not, what's bad. He just doesn't beat around the bush. He's a straight shooter, and he's really got this athletic program, especially with football.
Oh my
Like
God. Yeah.
like you can't say enough about just the transition. You know what I mean? Like sometimes there's drop offs from athletic directors, but it's been a high standard ever since Carruthers it went from Carruthers to Poisel to Romero.
Oh yeah, and I've shouted out Ashley Spees, Dr. Spees, so many
Love
times and so forth. I mean, we couldn't have asked for a better principal that's all in with athletics and academics, and she is definitely a rebel with the cause, even though she didn't graduate. But the way she acts, she might as well have been a class of whatever for West High School. So
fantastic principal, man. Like
yeah.
one of the best principals in Knox County.
Great mom, with her two kids and so forth that did great at West and doing good things at UT. So just continuing it, and realistically, like you said, the fact that you still have Carruthers as an administrator, the fact that you still have Romero, like we've mentioned, and Spees, and then the other administrators. I mean, if only we had been blessed with that type of administration back when we were there 20 something years ago. It would be completely different. It'd be completely different and so forth. So yeah. But speaking of which, you have an announcement to Pair that you found out. Our guy Shane McGee, he's on it, and I'll put his comment from the chat box behind the scenes on the screen. But I don't want to steal your thunder, to Pair. So tell us, what is the big announcement that you did have to let it be known to the Rebels with a Cause audience tonight?
Well, I mean, I guess people saw my Facebook post. It's best news I've heard in a long time. You know what I mean? Like, mm-mm, mm-mm. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, for this school, I didn't think it was gonna happen, but apparently that job has opened up for the women's basketball team, and it's kind of like you kind of saw the writing on the wall from the season. Just
Mm-hmm.
played, I think in the last 2 years they may be 2-40.
Would you believe 1-40?
One in damn, yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, they only won one game last year. They did not win any this year. It was sad to watch. I felt very bad for the girls on that team. They tried as best they could. Sometimes the puzzle doesn't fit, and as kind as I can be with that and so forth. And I'm hoping that whatever coach they make a decision with, and again, I trust Romero and Spees to hire the best possible coach.
Absolutely.
Um, And if they get somebody that understands the culture at West, that understands what you have in a school of 1,400, I mean, you listen, there's just as many talented ladies that walk those halls as the guys, honestly. I've seen it in other sports. Volleyball team competes. Girls soccer was in state a couple years ago. Swimmers, track, cross country, softball. I mean, it's not that that's just ridiculous that you didn't have one sport that was so far off from the others when that really, no offense, should be the bread and butter of the girls' programs at that school.
Oh man, yeah, because at one time it was, and I look at people. I look at That's why I said, like, if I was filling that position at West, a couple of names that I would look to. If you think about it, like former players, Shauna McKinney, who played at West, class of '95, a phenomenal basketball player, played under Coach Jones. Um, she would be like the first name off the board.
Mm-hmm.
My second name, it might not be a choice people would think of, but I would even think about a Nicole Johnson.
Wow.
Like former player, class of 2000.
I'm going to have to reach out to her, by the way. I need to reach out to her. I know her husband is absolutely killing it at Central already with the amount of guys they've got coming out and working in the weight room. Central's going to be back pretty soon. I really believe that. I mean, he'll get the guys out there. So
I think got the right coach. But as far as like coaches, I don't know if Carrie Helm still lives in Knoxville. She would make a phenomenal coach.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the former players like a Shira Bewley would make a great coach. Mikey Smith.
I don't know if she'd leave. I don't know how it works with guidance counselors and stuff like that. Last I heard, Rachel Bast was a guidance counselor at Farragut High School, followed in her mom's footsteps. And I don't know if that would be a possibility, because I think Rachel Bast would be a phenomenal coach for the women's basketball program at West. Honestly, if she, but she might like just being a guidance counselor at Farragut, and helping those kids and so forth.
Yeah,
I don't know if she's even involved with sports there as a guidance counselor for Farragut.
I know she really loves Farragut. Like she loves Farragut, so it'd be hard pressed to get her to come away from that school because she really loves it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, man, it's just like a lot of people that I would think do a great job, but Shauna McKinney would be my first choice. That's the first.
Am I wrong for saying this too, Pair? That I'm not saying, okay, let's say they hire who you say, and they're going to win the state championship. No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that you're going to be competitive in every game. You're going to have numbers. You're going to have a strategy. You're going to have an identity. Do you play man-to-man? Do you play zone? Do you want to play half court, or do you full throttle and rotate 5 to 10 players and so forth? What is your identity? Are you just throwing out there? This isn't. No offense. This is not rec league basketball or West Bearden, or where everybody gets to play, everybody gets a ribbon, everybody gets a trophy. No, there were some dangerous teams out there that really enjoyed pulverizing you from these other schools.
Absolutely.
I saw girls on other teams licking their chops like hungry wolves, ready to go out there and just annihilate you. And they did. And I didn't know. It's like it's like going into a fight and you had two hands tied behind your back, and I just felt so bad. And it's like, get back on defense, move your feet, these basic fundamentals, how do you shoot? What's your form? Why are you just jacking up shots, dribbling just to dribble, afraid to, be aggressive and draw the contact? These are just things that are taught at a very young level. And should still be emphasized as you go up and get into the competitive basketball when you are playing in the biggest classification in the state of Tennessee. And I just think that whoever is the right hire is made, you will get those numbers out there. You will see these things. You will have an identity, and maybe you will have big crowds come to enjoy good women's basketball. I mean, just look at this women's NCAA tournament. People are coming all around to see Caitlin play. Juju over at USC is another one that's going to be the next big name. Paige over at Connecticut. The list goes on and on. And we've seen girls over the years, the Candace Parkers, the Maya Moores, the Elena Del Dons, the Brianna Stewarts. I mean, there's Brittany Griner. There have been people that have shown up to see the spectacle. It may not be everybody's cup of tea. However, in a gym like that, in a school that supports sports or what have you like that, you give them a product to watch, you'll get the support and the butts in the seats and a competitive home court edge. And you calling the game.
I mean, it was times where, like, I as being as supportive as we have, like, it was kind of brutal. It was hard to watch, man. It was
Broke my heart.
tough on those girls. Like, those girls are practicing their tail off, not seeing the results. And it's like, what is going on fundamentally in practice for this to show up on the court? And that's all the answer that I wanted as being an alum. Like, as much as time we give to the school, like, time, you know what I'm saying? Like, and time is short. And you just want to see kids from every graduating class be successful in a team sport, because that's damaging to those young girls going through West and being, considered one of those teams is like, I remember y'all were bad. I don't remember you guys were like 2011. I don't remember you guys going to state like those girls. Like, how far removed is that time frame of West basketball for ladies, for girls? Like, those girls probably didn't see Shira Bewley.
No, because if that was 2011 and that was 13 years ago, they were like going into kindergarten, pre-K type of thing. I mean, they were babies. I mean, they really were. They're still babies, but I'm just saying that, they were young. They were little. So, and they wouldn't know that unless their parents took them to a game or something like that. So,
they didn't see that.
No.
And it's sad because,
I mean, I think you hit it spot on, and you talk about what happened in practice. Pair, there were games I was watching where the girls were looking at the bench for help, and it's like they weren't getting it, and I'm just like, and it broke my heart because I have coached before boys. I haven't coached girls in basketball, but it's like you can't just leave them out there to dry type of a thing, and you've got to have some type of help that needs to be given when they're looking. And they just didn't know what they were doing out there, and it was relevant. And the other coaches on the other sidelines, I saw plays drawn up. I saw strategy. I saw, and it was just like, why can that not happen here? Because it happens in all the other sports. So it's unbelievable that you even got to that point. And like I said, a new culture has to be created with the right hire, like how Lamar had to pick up. I mean, it's just incredible how a bad hire in just 2 years with Jeff Herrig and the football team when Cummings left, when you still had all the talent. I mean, yeah, you lost Cottrell and those guys, and they were special dudes, okay, but you still had a lot of talent from that 2014 team coming back, and you had some talented freshmen coming up. But the coaching and the atmosphere was no good. And you had leftovers from Cummings' staff with Herrick bringing in some of his people, and I just don't think it meshed correctly. It didn't. And in 2 years' time, West went from state champions to state chumps. I mean, they were preseason #1 and didn't even make the playoffs. They lost to Heritage and Gibbs that year with guys like Eric Middleton. Christian Romines was your tailback. I mean, what was going on with that team? Tyler Jones at defensive tackle. Leonard Humphrey was on that team. So my point is that they had so much talent, that senior group, and didn't even make the playoffs because of a bad coaching hire. Then you get Lamar in here, and Lamar inherited a mess, but look what he's done with the right coaches. I mean, that staff, the best in the state of Tennessee. I'd put them 1 through 11 against anybody in this state. I don't care who, from any classification, private school, whatever. That staff loves each other, and the boys believe in their message, and it's all about culture, and that needs to translate to the girls' program in basketball.
Yeah, it's just a thing of,
right here.
The parents are totally invested.
Mm-hmm.
Parents are
We talked to them after the games. I mean, I felt bad for them. That was their daughters. That was their daughters out there. Goodness gracious. But we have guys in this chat room that have daughters that could have been on that team.
The parents are totally invested, and the product that they see from their investment is turning them away from the program because they don't believe that it's a solid foundation for their young girl to play it. And the thing is, West is a phenomenal school. West is a phenomenal school. And the coach wasn't, it just didn't resonate of teaching. Like I didn't see anything learned. Like the thing was the defensively non-existent. And you would think a team that I've seen some bad West girl basketball team.
Mm-hmm. 18 years you've been doing this.
And I've seen some good ones. The good ones play defense. Because there's a lot of times that you look back on some of these teams with the Crystal Kesslers, the Erica Lanes, they went through their periods too. They went through their time frame of growing pains, and then they started winning. If you really think about it, Crystal Kessler started that winning tradition.
She did.
From Crystal Kessler, you had Erica Lane, who was phenomenal. Then from Erica Lane, you got a Morgan Jack in there, who was a phenomenal track star playing basketball. Then,
Miriam, I think she was from South America somewhere, but she was a foreign exchange student, played great basketball. Miriam did. Sharday Bewley, like you mentioned. So
you get the Shira Mikeyer, who, if you like, that's probably the best West squad we've ever seen.
And I say it before and I say it again. Their only bad luck was they drew Riverdale in the first round of the sub tournament. That's like Austin East drawing Douglas, and you played what you could, but they were the class, Riverdale put a lot of girls from that team in D1. Lady Vols were even recruiting some still back in that day because those were Pat Summitt's last teams before she gave it over to Holly Warlick. So
yeah, and
it's not impossible though, and like you said, and again, I've never seen so many fast breaks given up, not getting back on defense. And again, even when you were available to set up your half-court defense, you didn't know whether you were a zone, whether you were man-to-man. I mean, you had no identity whatsoever. And it's like, do they even know what they're doing? And because of that identity, how many second chance points did you give up to Pair? I mean, the other teams weren't shooting efficiently, but they were dang in the right position for putbacks, and it was sad to see.
And the thing that's why I keep saying, like, keep going. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. To the point of when I was doing that, I'm like, yep, and this, and this, and it's building a program at the bottom and trying to take it to a high level. it's hard to compete with basketball, but it's really not.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
It's
What
really
about the facilities? You talk about the facilities, man. They got a big screen in that gym. They've got weight rooms all over the place. I mean, Big O was talking about how the one weight room was for everybody. Football's got their own weight room. Then they've got a solid weight room right there nestled between the baseball field and just across from the AG building. Remember, it used to be in the AG building and so forth like that. So my point is the conditioning is there. The track is open all year. The stadiums are there. Run Tobler. Get conditioned because it is what 32 minutes of hell, pretty much. 8-minute quarters, 4 quarters. You need to be able to even do maybe even another overtime. So if you want to do 32 minutes, go 36, just so you're better than the other team that's competing out there, with your conditioning and so forth like that. Because you got to bring it for 36 minutes, not 32, 36 in case it goes into overtime.
it just looked like they didn't have like scouting reports. It was just they rolled the ball out there and just said, okay.
What was done at halftime? No layup lines after halftime. What did they do in that 10 minutes? I mean, and there was no like, rah, let's get them in the second half type of thing. I mean, you're already down 25 points. What's the difference if you lose by 50? Like do something out there different than if you're down already 25. So,
And then the constant bickering between coach, player, like it just was time, like
it was.
because I look at the players before, gosh, her name is slipping my mind. Our point guard from last year, her name is just slipping my mind right now. Not this past season, it was the year before.
Mm. The one in 21 team.
What was her name? It's slipping my mind. She was a senior. She graduated 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Point guard. I'm trying to remember her name.
You mentioned it to me, and she was
played with Kaylee Newman. She's in that class. Kaylee and Shy Bullock. Let me find her.
Sure.
A point guard. What was her name? I just slipping my mind.
I hate that when that happens. You've mentioned her before to me because you said that she was like one of the bright spots of last year's team that won the one game. So
yeah, really one of the bright spots that won one game.
It hurts our heart. I hate when any West team loses a game. Sorry, I do. Whether I played that sport or not, I want us to win them all. Honestly,
She's tough too. She's actually playing in college right now. Point short. What was her name? Man, if anybody remembers our point guard's name.
Well, can I just throw this out there too, Pair? I think what's the most disheartening thing is when I came up to the ticket booth every time. Nice people, take my money, whatever. And there's a program out there, but it's only a boys program. There's not a roster for the girls. There wasn't anything, like I would have loved to have known what the favorites of the girls were, just like it was the guys. I learned about what their favorite food was and, which teammates they thought were funny and stuff like that. It made you really care and become personalized with the team of the boys, but you knew nothing about the girls team. And that's not fair to the 12 or 13 that were on that squad. So, I mean, what you put into is what you get, honestly.
Exactly.
I mean, I had to ask you, what's number 4's name? What's not, I had to. I mean, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a picture from the stat book. That's how I knew their names. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really bad, man. Like,
well, we'll update that one as we get to know more, and hopefully they interview a slew of candidates and make the right hire and get to work so we can have something to talk about next year, along with hopefully our state champion boys team. One other thing that we just did need to mention, we kind of called it, but it was made official. Jeff Courtney, the son of the great Eddie Courtney, did become the head coach at Farragut, and he's putting his staff together. and they are going to be a program. Not that they've fallen off or anything like that, but that program's not going anywhere, and it's going to be very interesting to see how Jeff puts his handprint following his father's legacy of over so many years of being a part of that school as either an assistant head football coach and the head guy himself since about 1994, 1995. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. Like I really think they're gonna be a force to be reckoned with, though.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, there's not an easy game on West's schedule this year. I mean, I pick us to win every game, but there is not one game. Shane, if you're still on, bud, I have a question for you because I'm kind of surprised that Bearden even went for this. It was your all's turn to host this year. And I'm seeing that West Bearden game that's going to be on TV by Packer, the LMU Classic, is actually going to be played up in LMU Stadium. Is that accurate, or did they just get that wrong on Coach T? Because the schedules are almost officially all finalized, and I saw that and I go, why would Bearden give up a home game when it was their turn in the rotation? So I don't know if that's wrong on Coach T, but I had planned to be at Bearden High School football stadium for whenever that game was, whether at noon or 7:30 or whatever. But if you know anything more about that, that would be great because like I said, I think it's fun when the game is played at the home stadiums of each team. That's what makes it a rivalry, not in some neutral field. You know what I mean? That's just my opinion. Two Pair, do you have any thoughts on that, by the way?
I mean, if you do it on a neutral field, let's just take you to the next level. Like put that bad boy up in Needland.
Yeah, shit. Yeah, for
You know
sure.
what I mean?
Oh, shoot. I haven't heard of anything, but I recently left Bearden. So what? Are you not with them coaching anymore, or what's going on there? Um, just let me know. So, or private message me, whatever. At this point, so I don't know if you meant maybe that you'd left the school just a few minutes ago or an hour ago or something, but yeah, I'm just curious because I haven't had a chance to talk to Coach Brown about it or whatever. I'm sure I'll see him at the ring ceremony coming up in a couple of weeks, but I just I hadn't had a chance to really talk to him, and I know he's busy. I know he's really busy with the team, about to go into spring practice and all that as they're still working hard in the weight room. So I'm excited about that. That's the only sad thing when March Madness ends. I'm ready for spring football, man. You know, whether it's college, whether it's whatever, you know, I'm ready just to see and get them preseason magazines out. And I know that I'll be out there watching practice to see what I see and just report what I can without giving it away. Because like you said, Two Pair, we have definitely, you know, that we don't want to give it away because we have other opposing teams that hate our show, watch our show, get motivated by our show, and I don't need them to be any more motivated than they are, or give them any more of an advantage. So, but hey, we came up with it first, like it or not. Shane, nope, I'm out. They went in a different direction, and I'm going to be a dad for the first time in over a decade and not a coach. Wow. Well, you know what, man? There's a nice place at 3300 Sutherland Avenue. I don't know if you'd love to take your talents there. We'd love to welcome you back to the family. One West, baby. Just keep that in mind. So, but I get it, man. If there's zone for Bearden, there's zone for Bearden. I get it. So, but that being said, that's what we've got on the high school side. I know that a lot of people are tuning in to talk about the tournament and these matchups this weekend and so forth. We can also talk about the first and second rounds that we've kind of talked about a little bit already. You know, who was everybody's most disappointing team? I'm going to go out there and say Kentucky. I really thought that their freshmen, you know, you talk about a team that made every shot, it seemed, when they played the Vols in Thompson Bowling Arena, spoiling senior night. And yet Tennessee still almost came back to win that game, as lousy as they played in Kentucky, making everything and, you know, throwing the ball in the ocean, it seemed, no pun intended. But I was really thinking Kentucky was going to use that game to really spearhead their run. And if anybody had a dud of an SEC tournament and a NCAA tournament, it has to be them two pair. I mean, people were picking them to win the national title or the Final Four, not losing to Oakland and the Eddie Munster lookalike that made like 10 or 11 three-pointers. I mean, he looked like Eddie Munster. He looked like Mayhem from Allstate, by the way, and he created Mayhem. And he was jacking shots that, like, you would be on like you'd rather be on an official court, a street court, whatever, at the park. And you're like, you ain't supposed to make a shot like that. And he's making them. Like and they didn't have anybody that wasn't holding his hand the whole time. Get a walk on and foul him out, or I don't know, man. And no wonder Kentucky fans wanted Calipari fired, man. I would have made him walk back. Where was that game played? I would have made him walk his ass back from Pittsburgh all the way to Lexington, apologizing to all the fans. That poor girl. They showed this really. Listen, they showed this really hot girl on. And I said, "Oh, baby, I want to give you a hug. Listen, Tennessee's better than you. I know it. It's okay. We'll be all right. You'll be all right next year. Don't worry. You got another number 1, number 2 recruiting class coming in or whatever. Y'all will be fine or whatever." But Calipari should have apologized to the hot girl on TV or whatever like that. So yeah.
No, I was disappointed in them. I will say, like, the most disappointing is just got to be the SEC in a whole, except for the 2 teams that are still left. Like, Tennessee and Alabama knew the assignment.
Yeah.
Alabama bounced back from their terrible SEC tournament. I want to say, was it Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky all lost?
It was Reed Shepherd's sister, apparently, I'm being told. So. Woo! Anyway.
That's awesome.
I'll be good. Keep going.
No, that's good. No, they're just them dudes are young, man. Like young basketball players against older basketball players who are smarter basketball players will win all the time. Like, experience is always going to be beating age. Like, you can be as talented as you want to be. Like, at some point, you're going to have to play some defense.
Mm-hmm.
And how you let my man get 10? The man had 7 at the half.
He Eddie Munstered their ass out of the tournament, man. He did. I mean, he did. I mean, oh my God.
We're not a Cinderella. Yeah, you are.
Hey, what did I say on Facebook? I said, the clock struck 12, Cinderella. That's what I said. And what's his name? DJ, the 2 DJs made sure that got done or whatever. So, Burns and Horn. So, yeah, I mean, goodness gracious. So, I mean, honestly, these little teams, I love the confidence or whatever, but don't poke the bear. Don't poke the bear. Listen.
Don't poke that bear from NC State.
Listen. I'm going to give you another one. I'll give you another one. Like we talked about Auburn and Yale, which I mean, how did they even blow that game at the end? Michael Lynn said Mississippi State. I mean, here's the other thing too. I said to somebody, of course, Mississippi State's going to bend over for Izzo and the Spartans. I know it. And Michigan State shot unbelievable. Michigan State shot good for that first 10 minutes against North Carolina, and then Harrison Ingram had the game of his life for the Tar Heels, and they, got rid of him for the 6th time. I mean, listen, death, taxes, and Michigan State losing to North Carolina in the tournament. That's what happens every time. Every time. But I thought Mississippi State could have given Carolina a game in that second round, but they didn't even show up to a pair. I mean, they didn't show up. I'll give Florida a pass because for them to do as well as they did against Colorado without their big man who had that horrible injury, awful. And I'm not a Gator apologist. I'm just saying that how would they have done in the tournament had he played? I mean, I think they beat Colorado and maybe even upset Marquette to set up an NC State-Florida game in the Sweet 16 if they still were going to give them a 7 seed with his injury and everything like that and them losing to Auburn in the SEC final. So,
Yeah, I really like that Florida team until that injury.
they were well coached. They were well
Florida
coached.
was playing some really good basketball. They they were really playing some good basketball. Shout out to Josh Hunt, a big Florida Gator fan. So we shot him out for.
I mean, they lost on a heartbreaker. I seriously thought their game was over. I think they were down by 8 with about 2 minutes to go, and they fought, clawed, tied, and then that Colorado guy just makes a shot there, from the baseline, and it's over. And there's no time left. You can't even inbound the ball. It's done. And
Hey,
that's a horrible feeling.
shot was pretty, though. That shot was pretty.
Yeah. You know who the worst team in the tournament was, in my opinion? Nevada. We had them. How do you blow a 17-point lead with 9 minutes to
I
go?
picked Dayton.
You picked Dayton, but we convinced you to pick Nevada because it was like 4-1 or whatever.
Like this one. Yeah, I picked Dayton.
You picked Deron Holmes, so yeah.
I was right. I told you I was riding with Deron Holmes.
Yeah, yeah.
I was talking like Shannon Shaw. I was I'll ride with Deron Holmes. I'll ride with him. Ride with him.
I guess my question was this: how the hell did it even get to that point, Pair? Because theoretically, 7-10 is whatever. It's one of those games that could go either way. But Dayton was probably the more well-known team than Nevada. But you talk about how the disappointment of the SEC and the Big 12 was. You might as well throw the Mountain West and the Big 10 in there too at this point. Honestly. I mean, Wisconsin got ran off the court by JMU. We picked that one. Illinois is doing their thing, and I really think that a matchup tomorrow night that doesn't have the sexiness behind it of, say, Carolina playing Alabama, even though Alabama's not a basketball school, they're still a brand, and that's going to be a CBS game. UConn, San Diego State, you mentioned, Arizona, and the surprise of Clemson. But that Illinois-Iowa State game, I think, has the possibility to be the best game of all 4 of those tomorrow night, and it's going to be on TBS and so forth.
I think so. I like Iowa State though.
Oh yeah. I mean, we picked Illinois in the in our bracket or what have you, but in my bracket, I have Iowa State. I think that team is for real, honestly. And if I'm not saying UConn. I mean, everybody's been saying this is the UConn National Tournament. So.
I like Shannon. Shannon is nice. If Shannon has a big game and they do what they're supposed to do defensively, Illinois can win. But I think I picked Iowa State in this one. I picked Iowa State in one of these brackets. Michael
Lynn through Virginia out there. Shane, Troy, if you're still on, anybody watching, who else? Virginia stinks, okay? That first 4, they were an atrocious group. What an atrocious team, honestly. And then after the game, did you hear what Tony Bennett said? Well, we'll look at some things and maybe change you should have done it 4 years ago. What you talking about now? Get the hell out of here.
Low methodical style of basketball is not. Look, the difference between what he did when he won the chip, you had 2 guys. You had 1 lottery pick.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You really had 3 guys, actually. You had 3 guys.
And who was the swing guy? There was a real athletic guy. I don't think he's playing in the NBA. They had 4, and then they just put some big guy in the middle to be the rebound and kick guy that would get them the 3-pointers in the second chance. He was a tall guy with dark hair, if I remember correctly. He had a flat top haircut or something like that. So yeah, but but look at what had to happen for that. I mean, they didn't have to play Tennessee. They didn't have to play North Carolina, who was good that year. They completely avoided Kentucky. They got Auburn instead. Auburn had a good team. We do admit that. And let's be real, man. Let's be real. Texas Tech was a nice little story that year. But if Duke and Zion Williamson hadn't choked in the Elite 8, they owned them in the ACC regular season. So they were like that kryptonite for a team like that. But they won a championship. But since then, they have been a first-round exit, not even making the tournament. So I agree with you, Lynn, in theory, especially with how the other ACC teams that have done. And I think Pitt should have gotten that
like that pick.
yeah,
I
or
like.
Indiana State, like you mentioned.
I like. Well, you know how I feel about the Indiana State. I think they're one of the best coach teams in college basketball, man. Like I love the Indiana State team, man. Like they hoop.
That player would have been showcased on all sorts of commercials, and they could have just done a whole thing around him. Honestly, that first weekend, the nerd or whatever, I forget his name, but he can ball, he can play. So Shane said he expected more from South Carolina and Mississippi State. Absolutely. I would ask this, since a lot of us here watch SEC basketball. Of the three, Mississippi State, Auburn, and South Carolina, who was the most disappointing of those three? Never mind Kentucky. Never mind. We've already talked about Florida with their injury. Of those three, I thought those three really had it in the bag to win. I mean, especially Auburn. I mean, some people had Auburn upsetting UConn in that Sweet 16.
Oh yeah, in some brackets, I'd have been like, yeah, that could, but then it's like, nah, I don't ever think that could happen.
Yeah. Michael says Auburn for sure. I agree with you, man, because when Bruce Pearl runs his mouth and says, "Oh, this is a team built for March," which March? 2025? Because it wasn't 2024. It wasn't. I mean, yeah, you won the SEC, but let's be real. If Tennessee had taken care of business against Mississippi State and you've got 15,000 Vol fans rooting their asses off or whatever, they would have ran Auburn off the court. Dalton Connect would have had 25 points in that game.
Yep.
Minimum.
I agree.
Ziegler would have shut down their point guard.
My thing is, if we would have really got to see the Tennessee that's playing now in Nashville, but I won't hang on to that as much as I am now. I'm happy we don't see second round Rick.
Mm-hmm.
They actually fought for that one.
And let me tell you something. The staffs knew each other. He knew those guys over there at Texas. That's a great staff over there, And guys, they were a bad 10 minutes away from really being in the Final Four last year. I mean, how they blew that 13-point lead to Miami last year was just unbelievable. I was happy as a Cane fan, but I thought it was done. And yet Texas was literally 10 minutes away from making a Final Four. They had the shirts ready and everything. And there was a picture that got out of that I have. I have that picture because it was an insult to Miami that the game wasn't, you already are kind of handing those shirts out with about 10 minutes to go. Mm-hmm. And I know they lost some players off that team, but that staff was no joke. But credit to Rick and the staff and the players overcoming Dalton's bad shooting night. And again, guys, what is the purpose of this tournament? Survive and advance. It don't matter if you win by one, but if you've got one more point than the other team and you're still dancing in the second weekend, that's all I care about, honestly. Sure, you'd love to win comfortably, but I rest my case. Yeah. Shane is right about this. How Auburn lost to Yale is just crazy. Yeah. The Tennessee-Texas game was a physical-ass game. Yes, it was. There is no doubt it was. I mean, that was a grown man's game out there. And Michael, preach, brother, because that has been a game they've lost in the past. I mean, and realistically, I was having visions of Florida Atlantic from last year again at some points. And I was like, how are you letting them get back in this game? Do not blow this. Just finish it, get it done. And they did. They did. And now they're playing an opponent in Creighton that realistically is damn lucky to be where they're at. I thought Oregon just ran out of gas. I mean, Dante ran out of gas. I mean, Oregon was basically using 2 players against 5, and they just wore out in overtime. Creighton can shoot the ball. I'm not discrediting them. But at the same time, I think Tennessee can run Creighton off the court and should be in the Elite 8. What do you say, Pair?
I hope you're right, because I feel like Tennessee just got to shoot better. Like they got to be consistent, and they've got to speed their tempo, and they've got to defend the perimeter, because it can't get to the point of, if they're not defending that perimeter, we can be going home very quickly.
Yeah.
Very like
Yeah.
like you Creighton. It wouldn't surprise me if Creighton upset the Vols. It shouldn't happen, but you really want to see a team like this. That I feel like this is the best Tennessee team since Chris Lofton era, maybe even the Grant Williams era, Ron Slayer. Like this team has a chance because they have the components of, we need a Jonas Adu game. We need it. That Toby Awaka played phenomenal. You need a game where he's aggressive like that, not in foul trouble. You know, run that bench.
Yeah.
Run that bench. I would love to see Vescovi come off the bench.
He is due for a game of games, and maybe it is Friday night. Maybe it is. I don't know. He's due. I mean, obviously you can't have Dalton shoot that bad again. But I'm gonna tell you this, and Michael, you bring up something that's really true. Shane, I'm gonna get to your comment next. Michael said, if only the refs can figure out how to call a Zach Edey game. I will say this. Purdue better watch out against Gonzaga. Gonzaga's playing some phenomenal basketball. I don't care that they beat McNee at 12 because a lot of people had McNee. I even was kind of toying with McNee in a few brackets. So there's that. Kansas was lucky to even be there, but for Gonzaga to run their ass off the court, I think Mark Few can outcoach Matt Painter in his sleep. I don't know if he has an answer inside for Zach Edey. Not many teams do. But how the refs call that game, how that crowd is going to be very big too. I mean, if Gonzaga gets up on Purdue, you probably have more Purdue fans there, but Tennessee travels. And Tennessee and Creighton will root for the upset because obviously their game will be second, and they'll want to rather play Gonzaga than Purdue. I think Tennessee wants another shot at Purdue. That would be a rematch from earlier this year. And I think Tennessee got screwed in that game with all the refs' calls and everything and how they called that game. So, will they swallow the whistle, or will they allow Zach Edey and Purdue to play that physical Big Ten basketball? It really, there's no telling. But on paper, I see a Tennessee-Purdue matchup, and I think that Tennessee's got the dogs of those teams to break into the Final Four for the first time in school history. What a magical moment that could be at 4:30 Sunday afternoon in Detroit.
I think they got a chance to beat. I think they have the best chance to beat Purdue because there's some payback and get back. And the fact that this is kind of like the Maui Invitational with the team. I want to say Kansas is the only one that didn't make it.
No, and they put them all in that same bracket, which was hilarious. I mean, shoot. Very weird.
That was really funny to me.
Yeah. What do you think about Shane's comment there? If Tennessee doesn't make it to the Final Four, the season would be a failure, in my opinion. Can I say this, Shane? I see where you're coming from. I would say that if they at least didn't win the SEC regular season. Obviously, the tournament was a disappointment, not having that trophy and cutting down that net. But the fact that you were regular season champions in this league, I could even argue that this league is just so beat the hell out of from what they've played against each other. They of course went up against the ACC in the first ever SEC ACC tournament because they've replaced that ACC Big Ten. I don't call it a failure. I will say this: they can at least match that great Bruce Pearl team that had J.P. Prince that got to the Elite Eight and fell short against Michigan State in that game and so forth, because that Tennessee team could have won it all that year in 2010 against Butler or Duke or any of those teams that were there. It just kind of fell apart in that last 5 minutes, and it was the program's first Elite Eight. So, I think they'll win this game on Friday. It's really house money at this point, because if you go by seeding, the one is supposed to beat the two in the Elite Eight, supposed to. But I think Tennessee's salivating for that chance because they left something unfinished on those Hawaiian Islands. What do you think, Pair?
I feel like that's true because the way they played down the stretch in the Texas game, that gave me a sense of, I think if they even shoot bad like that, their defense is that much better than the opposing team's offense. It's just Texas shot horrible too.
Yeah. Yeah, they shot horrible in that Colorado State game too. I mean, it really was bad basketball. I mean, for what Colorado State did to Virginia, Colorado State stunk. I mean, only putting up 17 points themselves in one half of basketball. That's barely a point a minute.
But of all the stinkers though, Kansas, that was the stinker though. 68 points. They stunk.
They stunk.
Like that game was like a 1-point game at one point.
It was. And meanwhile, Tennessee was as fresh as a daisy. They beat the hell out of St. Peter's. That was a terrible St. Peter's team. I mean, they were just
terrible.
They were awful. I mean, Larry Frank from Utah, glad to have you on, brother, has a question. Pair, you can answer this one too. Switch to the women's side for a sec. What's your all's thoughts on Ice Cube offering Caitlin $5 million to join the Big Three League? Should she go for the money or be drafted to the WNBA and make less money?
Man, go get that quick 10 million. Go get it. Take it. Here's my thing. If Ice Cube is telling you they want the best female basketball player in college basketball for a league, Ice Cube's league is so good, they have made it an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
So why not? Cube's what we call a smart businessman. And take it, because she's gonna make more money off the court than she would in the WNBA.
The sad thing is that I take the money too. I don't know I don't know her well enough. And what I mean by that is phenomenal basketball player. Can't argue that. I think she gets a bad rep. I mean, there was a coach saying some ridiculousness that she's whining for calls, and who doesn't do that? I get out of here with that crap. Give the girl some dap. But here's the thing: does she really want to be the martyr that believes that maybe she can take the WNBA to the echelon that they would like to be in, where the Candace Parkers, the Maya Moores have not really done, for Rebecca Lobo? I can go on and on and on. Or she's got to look for her future, because, her playing days are limited just like a running back in the NFL. You know what I mean? And so forth. She might want to do a family someday, all that stuff, So I'd take the money in a heartbeat. But again, what will the WNBA do to, instill, to make her the face of the sport, ultimately, and so forth like that. So, yeah.
I mean, phenomenal. She just hasn't won the one thing that these other women have. Like, you're looking at a Angel Reese's won. You're looking at a South Carolina team that
is scary good.
They beat North Carolina so bad.
Dude, they were up by 50 points. And North Carolina wasn't trash. They were a good ACC women's team. They'd won some games. So, I mean, they were silly out there.
They look bad. That looked bad. And Sarah Lawson at Duke.
Oh, dude. Hey, let me tell you something. Can I just say this? Look, I don't know what's going to happen with our coach, with Kelly at this point. I think it's time to make a change. I don't know. I don't see the recruiting where it needs to be. And again, they had a chance to beat South Carolina, win the SEC tournament. It didn't happen. I just feel there's too much NIL money, too many people invested in Lady Vol basketball, that maybe they don't want to hire another Lady Vol. But if they do want to hire one more, give Kara Lawson a shot because she inherited a mess over at Duke, and they could not. I mean, they knocked off a great Ohio State team that beat Caitlin and Iowa. I mean, UConn's beatable. I mean, they're not invincible. They have a lot of injuries. Paige is an amazing player, but I like how Duke women's team plays in terms of the defense and everything. And they could have given up when they were down, but they came back and took it to Ohio State. At Ohio State. I mean, in Columbus. So that was a home game.
I like what Curry Lawson got going on at Duke, man.
Yeah.
Like he really can coach, man. Like
Yes,
Ohio State. They look really good against Ohio State.
I was actually surprised that we didn't give her a look after the whole Holly Warlick thing, failed. I saw Kara for many years, not only play in the WNBA, but also was like Jay Billis. She was Billis for the women's side with her analysis. She knew the game. She knew the players, and she was very serious and focused. And it was like, man, why is she not coaching? But probably ESPN was paying her a good bit of money for that and so forth, as that gig. And then Duke took a chance on her, and she went to the team that is going to pay you and says, here's our program, do something with it. And they're in the Sweet 16, and the Lady Vols aren't again. And I'm tired of saying that. It was almost the Lady Vols and UConn every year in the championship or the Final Four. You had a Stanford, you had a Notre Dame in there. We ain't even in those programs leagues anymore, man. We're a laughingstock. We're not even like middle of the road SEC, at this point. No. You've had teams that you never lost to in women's basketball that have winning streaks against you now. Ole Miss, Alabama, I could go on and on and on.
Yeah. The South Carolina one was probably like the toughest one, though. That's probably like the worst loss of the season.
I like what he just said. Don't sleep on USC and Juju. They're fun to watch, man. I liked watching them kick Kansas's ass the other night.
But you know who else I like on USC?
Who's that?
I like Mackenzie Forbes.
Oh yeah,
phenomenal.
Yeah,
he is phenomenal on that team. I like.
And for a while there, UNC women, they were there. I mean, they were always in the conversation too. Even Duke, when Duke had Gail Gestincourse as the coach there, Coach G for a while there. Maryland with Brenda Fries when they were still in the ACC. That was really competitive basketball back then. So yeah. Then you've got, honestly, I think Candace Parker gets the Tennessee Lady Vols job at some point. I wouldn't sleep on Candace. I mean, again, I understand keeping it in the family and so forth, but I'm seeing some coaches out there in women's basketball that aren't a part of any trees. They just can coach, So I'd almost like to see a fresh perspective on the program, but also respecting the legacy of what the great Pat Summitt did. And I have a lot of love for Pat Summitt because with as badly as Bruce Pearl mistreated me as an aspiring broadcaster at UT, Pat Summitt treated me with so much respect. And I legitimately shed a tear when not only did I find out that she was sick, when Coach was sick, but also when she eventually passed so young, because I really think if she'd still been coaching, she could have taken that to 1,500 wins or some ridiculousness and maybe a couple more national titles. So, but that's what I think about the great Pat Summitt. So, yeah.
Yeah, Pat was incredible. Really just honored that, what I'm saying, she impacted our lives in so many different ways. Like,
great interview.
Instrumental in mine. Known her for years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, it's like it's hard for those Lady Vols because you look at a Tamari Key, that's a lot of size, it's gone.
What a waste. I mean, I know she had some illness, some injury. I mean, what bad luck is that? Because that's like a Brittany Griner type for us, and did nothing happen with that?
Nothing. Like nothing. Like, and Rakia put that team on her back, man.
She did what she could do. She was a one-woman show.
A one-woman show. I love Jasmine Powell. I love Julie.
She was kind of disappointing. I was expecting more from her, and I never saw it.
Yeah, it's
maybe at times, but it wasn't consistent, is what I maybe mean to say.
Yeah, it's. I think when Tamari coming off the knee injury, man, she just ain't been the same player. She's not what she want. Like it feels bad because she's a phenomenal young lady. It's just
Mm.
it's hard to it's hard to try to come back from that type of those injuries to her knee.
Yeah, yeah. No, it just was bad luck, and again, just the fact that something's missing when you have the talent that they had on the court. That why were you always having to battle back from 20-point deficits, two pair? Can you answer that for me? Why are you even in that? Because if you play even, that means that you don't exert the energy to even get back into a game when you're down 20. But if you're even, maybe that energy exerts you to win by 10 or maybe 15 even or something like that, as opposed to falling short because you farted around for a quarter and a half and so forth like that while the other team's making buckets. And the slow starts is what ultimately doomed this team from the beginning of the year to the end, and it never clicked. And some teams it does click for, and it never did for them. And I don't know if that's a coaching thing or culture at this. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, it just never did click with them. It just didn't register. It
Yeah,
did.
it didn't. It didn't. So, well, how about this? Let's pick some men's games. I know that we got a lot of guys in the chat. Guys, let me just tell you this: I can't thank you enough for tuning in and contributing to the chat room. Whether it's for a few minutes, it's for the whole hour, 2 hours we're on. I love this time with you guys, man. This is so special to do this, and it helps me get on that back half of the hump week. You know what I mean? Type of a thing. I always look forward to spending time with two pair and everything like that, and you guys for contributing and making this show what it is, because we're all rebels with the cause, whether you graduated from West or not. That I really believe that, and that clock don't stop when it hits zero with that cause. So, but I look at this bracket though. I mean, these games tomorrow night: UConn, San Diego State, Illinois, Iowa State, North Carolina against Alabama, Clemson against Arizona. The lowest seed of all those teams is number 6 Clemson. And again, I apologize to them. I had New Mexico bouncing them. I was dead wrong. So kudos to them for even beating Baylor. They led that game most of the time. Now it's in Los Angeles. And I find it very interesting that, North Carolina did get that last number 1 seed. They're having to travel to Los Angeles. They're an East Coast team. Alabama's technically right on the cusp of the Central State timeline. They're having to go to the Pacific as a 4 seed. Clemson, an East Coast team, going to the Pacific. Arizona is the one Pacific school that's out there. And that's an advantage that cannot be overlooked in that arena.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it'd be some great games. Like I said, I don't think there's a bad game in any of these 8 that will be played over these next 2 days. But the chat can chime in on this. What game do you think has the potential to not only be the best, but what team in either the East or the West bracket do you think is a shoo-in for the Final Four? It's a 2-part question. So give me your best game. I'll put it on the chat box. Two pair, I'll let you lead this one off, as well as what team do you think is a shoo-in of those 8 teams tomorrow night to be in Phoenix come next weekend?
Let me pull this up. So we've got. Let's pull this up. So we're looking at the
East and West brackets, I believe. They play tomorrow night. I believe that the first game is going to be Arizona and Clemson on CBS at 7:10. And
mm-hmm.
then at 7:40, the UConn San Diego State game goes. And then 30 minutes after each of those games end, Carolina plays Alabama, and that's on CBS. And then 30 minutes after the UConn San Diego State game, Illinois and Iowa State will throw down on TBS.
So I like North Carolina over Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
I
think that's probably a shoe-in right there. So
I like Arizona over Clemson.
So we really are going to get that the Caleb Love Bowl pretty much. That's
mhm.
what. Yeah,
I feel
I
like
mean,
it happened. They want to build the drama. Like you want to build the drama for this game. So you're gonna see a lot of ticky tack stuff happen in that UNC Alabama game and the Arizona Clemson game. You're gonna see a lot of ticky tack stuff the way that game gonna be called. Um, a game that I'm very interested in is going to be uh, Purdue Gonzaga.
so you're skipping ahead to Friday's games.
Oh,
So okay.
my bad.
Yeah, no, we're talking. We'll get to Friday. I promise we'll get to Friday. A lot of matchups there in that too. So yeah.
No, this is all Thursdays.
Yeah, this is Thursday. I mean, you got the UConn San Diego State game you mentioned about the rematch of the championship.
I,
Illinois versus Iowa State, which were the Big 12 and Big 10 conference champions throwing down. So
I like UConn a lot.
yeah. Yeah.
I like UConn a lot.
Yeah. They're scary good. And they really didn't even shoot well from three against Northwestern, yet they still pounded them by 30-something points, it looked like. So,
Iowa State, Illinois is a toss-up for me. Like, that can go either way. Whoever's shooting the best is going to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
Because Illinois defends, and they've got a star in Terrence Shannon.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you this. Michael brought up something. I didn't even really look at. I guess I should be looking at these spreads. UNC's only a 4.5-point favorite seems low. Yeah, I mean, I think they set that just because Alabama's not trash. I mean, they're not.
They play a high pace, but I still like UNC.
I just think
I don't see UNC losing to Bama,
dude. Can I just tell you this?
I just don't see them losing to Bama.
What I find interesting, I'm going to tell you this. So Clemson, Arizona's first. I've already mentioned that. They're the first game. If I was UNC, not that UNC should be afraid of anybody, they shouldn't or whatever, but if it were me, I'd love for Clemson to win that game, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if Clemson wins that game, it is a rematch. They split, when they played in the ACC. You know them, you're familiar with them. But this isn't football, and there's not going to be 10,000 Clemson fans there in that arena. There's going to be 10,000 Arizona fans. And if Arizona loses, those fans are not going to stay for the second game. They're going to walk their little asses single file outside the arena, and they're done. You're going to be pissed off again. And if Arizona fans stay there and Alabama keeps that game close with Alabama or with North Carolina, and there's going to be a ton of Tar Heel fans there. I get it. But you'll have Alabama fans there. You'll have Arizona fans there. And that arena could change very quickly and make that a road game for UNC. I think UNC will have no trouble either way. But I think that arena would be just Tar Heel blue if Arizona gets bounced by Clemson in that first game. That's all I'm saying right there. So,
yeah, I'm a big fan of UNC. I just don't see UNC losing to Alabama. If they did, Mark Spears has got to play the game of his life for them to lose to North Carolina.
Yeah, I don't see it. No, I don't see it at all. I mean, Alabama.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just think that R.J. Davis is playing really good, and if Harrison Ingram or Cormac Ryan shoot the way that they can shoot, and Baycott's cleaning up in the middle, I mean, and Alabama doesn't play defense. That's the thing. They don't play defense.
Give me the Cormac Ryan against Duke.
Oh, that he was umpire.
Give me that Cormac Ryan.
Yeah, I mean,
that Cormac Ryan plays the same way he did it, like against Duke.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout of the NCAA tournament,
yeah,
that's when North Carolina becomes scary.
Yeah.
You know what you're going to get from Davis. You know what you're going to get from Baycott. Harrison Ingram does a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Kadu is their glue guy. Kadu is like their best defender that pesky and guards the other team's opposing best player or scorer. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to tell you this. I agree with Michael. Iowa State, Illinois is going to be the best game. Shane says it too. I mean, that's a toss-up for me. I picked Iowa State. I know in our Utah, or sorry, Larry, our Rebels with a Cause bracket, we had Illinois winning that game. I'm going to say this. Either team, do they have a shot to beat UConn, or is UConn just taking a wheelchair to Phoenix at this point?
Mm.
And I mean, they're in Boston playing. I mean, they have a significant home court advantage. Connecticut, not that far from Boston. San Diego State, you talk about a team having to go from the west to the east coast. Illinois is in the central time zone. Iowa State's in the central time zone, and they're going to the east. So it's virtually a home game for UConn in the Boston Garden Thursday and Saturday.
Yeah, it is, and the fan base is gonna be raucous in there.
Mm-hmm. You know something else, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to pick. I think UConn beats San Diego State handily. I think that Iowa State gets it done against Illinois. These are just my picks. I think North Carolina rolls against Bama. I think Arizona beats Clemson. But regardless, I think that UConn and UNC are on a collision course. And I think, no disrespect to the other side of the bracket, because we'll talk about them in a second, I think the winner of the UConn North Carolina Final Four game is your national champion.
You know what? I do too, because I feel like UConn and UNC were the two best teams in the country in the same bracket.
And that would be a rematch because they played at the beginning of the year, and Connecticut won by 10 points, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
If UConn, I would love to see a UConn UNC national title game.
And it wouldn't happen in the national title. It would almost be your de facto because they're on the Final Four. It would be it would be your 840 Final Four game. Even if Houston and Purdue get there on the other side and it's 4 number ones again, let's be real. The UConn UNC game would be the primetime 840 game, not your 610 opening game. That's going to be Houston Purdue if all 4 number ones get there. I mean, CBS would be crazy to put that as the 6 o'clock.
But I think Tennessee could
or TBS.
I think Tennessee could spoil some things if they see Purdue again and the season didn't work. Like, it's hard to beat a team 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know you can sweep a team and lose to the team the 3rd time you see them.
Exactly. Yep. I mean, look at this. If North Carolina does play Clemson, that would be the rubber match because they each won on each other's home court when they played. And they're 2 different teams from when they've played, but they know each other. I mean, you're familiar. I mean, can I give you a take? I'm going to give you a take. Let's go to Friday, okay? There's a potential Duke-NC State matchup in the Elite 8 that was just played in the ACC tournament where NC State beat them a week ago. I don't think Duke will beat Houston, but I'm just saying it's not impossible.
If Duke shoots like that, yeah, they do.
McCain can shoot. No, McCain can shoot.
But I don't know if my thing with Duke has been their guard play. Are their guards better than Houston's guards?
I'm going to tell you this. It's going to be a grown man's game in that one because here's the thing. I want to go back to your comment that you said last week. You asked, is Kansas playing possum? A lot of people, even us, thought Vermont could beat soft-ass Duke. A lot of people in the media were saying Duke is soft. If it's not Vermont, JMU is going to run them off the floor. You poked the bear, and they did that. And Filipowski didn't even have a good game for them, and he's their best player, technically. I don't think so. I think McCain is their best player.
I think Filipowski's supposed to be the best player.
I think he's supposed to be, but McCain is the guy, honestly. And he made himself some money just with that showing last week. I mean, and he'll do the combine and be selected as a lottery pick. I'm not saying top 5. He'll definitely be in the top 14.
Man, shoot.
Yeah.
Man, shoot. He was letting that thing fly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And if he sees it, I mean, he did that against Florida State. He had 35 points and set the freshman all-time record against Florida State. I lost money on that game because I actually picked Florida State to win because Duke never wins in Tallahassee, it seems. And that boy costed me money. I thought that was easy money for me on that Saturday or whatever. But I'm just saying this. Houston's guards run 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", but they got like these like chiseled arms. I mean, they look bigger on TV than how their stature is. Duke's guys, you know, I think one of the most disappointing players of the year, because he was preseason pick to be ACC Player of the Year, or at least ACC first team, was Tyrese Proctor from Australia. He's been a disappointment as their point guard. He's kind of skinny. How does he match up against the physicality of that Houston guard in, those guys? Jeremy Roach has been there forever. He's a little guy. He dislocated his finger. I don't know what his status is going to be to play. And then, of course, you've got McCain, who's a freshman. And these guys are older. I mean, if you talk about that old versus young mentality, and not to mention Houston's going to have the home crowd. They're only 4 hours away from Dallas, 4 or 5 hours away from Dallas. So that's a virtual home game for them. The NC State Marquette game, no disrespect to Marquette, I like NC State in that game. I really think that NC State's playing good, but the thing is Marquette really almost crapped the bed against Colorado. If anybody thinks I'm wrong, please say it. But I mean, Marquette's dang lucky to be there as opposed to Colorado. Colorado had them on the ropes there. I mean, they wouldn't die. So
I like NC State, but I don't know if they got enough firepower up against Marquette.
Against Marquette, let me ask you this:
they're just on an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah,
and the fall, I just don't want to see them fall. Like, they've won 7 out of 7 in 10 days, or 7 in 11 days.
7 in 11 days, but now you go 5 more days, so they could potentially have to win 9 in 16 days or whatever like that.
That would be crazy. If it were to happen, it would happen to NC State.
Yeah. And realistically, you're 41 years removed from that magical run when they beat Houston, ironically. The storylines there would be I feel bad for Marquette from a standpoint that NC State has won championships. They've won 2, 74 and 83. Houston's always been the bridesmaid, but never the bride at the dance. Duke, obviously, with their 5 national champions. But I look at that Houston NC State game would really, you'd have they play it all the time when Valvano can't find anybody to hug or whatever there at the end. You'd be talking that, yeah. And then if it's Duke versus NC State, if Duke does pull the upset against Houston, I mean, you got NC State and Duke, and that's what the history there, the triangle, and the ACC. They just played a couple times in the last couple of weeks, and what happens there. Kind of a spoiler that you would have never seen either of those two teams. I mean, realistically, though, I think that of the 4 number ones, I'd say Houston is the most vulnerable in this round. But if they get to the Elite 8, no disrespect to NC State or Marquette, I think Houston's in the Final 4. I think that. I think Purdue loses to Tennessee. I think Purdue is the 1-1 seed. If all 4 1 seeds get to the Elite 8, Purdue's going to be the one that doesn't make it to the Final 4.
I think Tennessee can beat Purdue. I think they can too. I want them to look forward. Don't look past Creighton.
Yeah.
Creighton blow you out the gym. Like,
oh yeah.
So I just think they owe Purdue. I'm crossing my fingers we get it, though.
They actually owe them too. Because remember, Purdue bounced that Tennessee team a couple of years ago in overtime.
Carson Edwards went crazy.
Carson Edwards was unstoppable that night against Admiral and Grant. So, yep. That was a heartbreaker. That was a great Tennessee team, too. That was a really good Tennessee team.
Great Tennessee team.
So, all right, so let me ask you this. Do you have Purdue beating Gonzaga? You don't think Gonzaga has an answer for Zach Edey at this point?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I've got Purdue. Everybody, you can chime in your picks. So to be fair, NC State Marquette, who do you got to pair?
To be fair, I think I picked. Let me pull it up.
Sure. I mean, here's my question. Does Marquette even have an inside presence? I've heard of Tyler Koloff and the other guy that can shoot, but do they have anybody that can stop Big Boy Burns, man? Because that guy is
No,
just
but
load.
I picked Marquette, but I think NC State wins. I
I
picked.
do too. I do too. I mean, that's what I'm saying. And can I just say this, man? And I don't mean this disrespectfully. I don't. But I think the winner of the Houston Duke game is in the Final Four. I believe that. I just think they're both better than NC State and Marquette. However, I think that NC State poses a bigger challenge to Houston as opposed to Marquette because Houston's defense is amazing, but Houston doesn't have a player over 6'9" ever since that freshman got hurt to handle Burns inside. That's
Yeah,
and how are the refs going to call that game? And then not to mention, NC State's got a freshman. I can't think of his name. You could pull him up before me. Maybe Shane can pull him up. He's celebrating Ramadan, and so basically he can't eat from sun up to sundown or whatever, or how the rules work in the religion. But yet they get him some crackers and water the minute he can do it. And this guy's played at an unbelievable level as a freshman. He was knocking down 3-pointers against Oakland, man, honestly. And him and Burns in the front court really pose some matchup problems for Marquette and would pose problems for Houston and Duke as well because they already beat Duke in the ACC tournament
mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
led the whole game for the most part. So
They know Duke inside out. And I was so glad that they put them on the other side of the bracket. Like they put them on the same bracket with Duke. Like that makes me so happy that you know what I'm saying, that they would have a chance at seeing them. It's really
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no, Larry's got a point. NC State is hot at the right time. And that's what it is, man. You got to be playing your best basketball. And there's so many factors. It's hard to win this tournament. Jay Williams said it best. It's a hard tournament to win. But if you break it up into two championship games, or two games, you just win 2 games here, move on. Don't worry about everybody. You worry about the 3 teams you could potentially be facing, the one that you're in front of you, and then one of the 2 on the other side. And there's too many tournaments there to get to a Final Four. And how you shoot one weekend, you could crap out the next. The rims are different. It's a different venue. One thing I found interesting, and two pair, I wanted to ask you if you know more about this because you're more of the basketball guy than I am, and you pay attention to things. Was it because of the COVID that they've stopped using dome games in the Elite Eight? Because I remember that they were playing in domes sometimes, and people were talking about how it's so different of, how to shoot. And the dome, the projection of that is not an actual basketball arena. And that's why in the Final Four, it's different, But it seemed like for a while there, they were playing the Elite Eight games and the Sweet 16 games in domes to get more asses in the seats. But is this a COVID thing that's changed? Because I really thought they might have been playing in Jerry's World there in Dallas. I knew they were playing in the Boston Garden and the Staples Center in the Los Angeles. And then I thought that the Midwest bracket, and I'm grateful for that for Tennessee, that they would be playing in Ford Field, but instead they're playing where the Pistons play and so forth. So at least they're all playing in arenas as opposed to the dome. So I don't know if you knew if that changed because of COVID, because thank you, Shane. You're the man. Diarra is that freshman beast for NC State. Shane McGee, always bringing it. Thank you, brother. So yeah.
Diarra.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Problem. DC.
Yeah, but like I said, I just found it interesting that, and I'm glad they're playing in the arenas. That's how it should be. And I get the domes and everything like that, but man, you're paying some nosebleed crap up in the, I mean, for a lot of money to. Can you even watch the game without seeing it on the big screen or binoculars? Honestly, so yeah, I mean, yeah. Let me see here. Marquette speeds up the pace. Burns show why he isn't at Tennessee. Yep. A dome is just huge. I can see how it could mess up your depth. Yeah, that's all it is. I mean, they never cared about the players. They were just putting asses in the seats to see if you could set the record for 50,000 fans and so forth like that. I mean,
because that's really what it all boiled down to is the money.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you this, though. I think that, I mean, of the games, the only one that I could really see kind of getting out of hand or what have you, and maybe I'm just disrespecting them or what have you. I think Tennessee beats Creighton by 12 or 13, guys. I'm
Well,
not worried about Creighton. I'm just not. I'm just not.
I feel like Creighton shoots the ball well, and we're gonna run into them on a night where they're shooting well. And
Yeah.
defensively, I just think if we handle what we're supposed to handle defensively, that can happen. But they just gotta they shoot the ball well. Like if they get on one of those nights where they're hitting everything, that's the only thing. But Tennessee has been really road warriors if you think about it. Just by the way they've shown, I think the Mississippi State game was the wake up call they needed. I think they needed that wake up call before the tournament.
Yep. 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 No, I mean, look, if you think about it, we might have to send a fruit basket to Mississippi State for that wake up call, honestly, because I think it's poised, like somebody said. It's Tennessee's to lose to get to the Final Four. Because let's be real, if it hadn't been for the SEC tournament, and you could even say the Kentucky game, but they were still, I thought, maybe after North Carolina beat Duke, I think North Carolina and them swapped because Tennessee lost to Kentucky. But guys, Tennessee could have easily been the 1 seed in the West where North Carolina's at. And then you're talking about North Carolina as a 2 in this Midwest bracket with Purdue or what have you, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's crazy how it all fell. But I think that this is the bracket that will have not the 1 seed breakthrough to the Final Four. I think Houston gets there now that Kentucky's out. I think that UConn and Carolina are a shoo-in. I think it's Tennessee's to lose to get to that Final Four. And even though they have a 2 by their name, they were talking about them as a 1 before the Kentucky and Mississippi State mishaps. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they don't foul either. Yeah. If Creighton, Larry goes, if Creighton hits their threes, it will be close. If not, then Tennessee wins by 15. That's what I'm saying. Larry, you and me have always been kind of the same when it comes to picking sports, and we've been pretty spot on, I would say 85% of the time. Obviously, a team can get hot. That's why it's called March Madness. But I don't know, like Oregon should have won that game against Creighton. And then what you're dealing with is a space eater in Dante that just looked amazing against South Carolina and Creighton. They just ran out of gas. I mean, and he himself was celebrating Ramadan just like Diarra was. So, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I just think that of all the games of there that could be played, I mean, I think that final scores will dictate it, but I could see Tennessee getting off to a hot start and the crowd get into it and them just, be wanting Purdue and set up a really fun game at 2:00 on Sunday in Detroit. So that's what I think. So, yeah. The team didn't prep. They was looking ahead. Yep. Tennessee 2.5. Yeah. I mean, I'd take Tennessee. I would. I mean, why not? I'd take Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, 2.5 point favorite. I'd take Tennessee because even if it's close, I could see Tennessee winning by 4 or 5, just like they did against Texas, if it's that type of a game. So,
yeah, I feel like we can't have a night where we shoot like that again.
Yeah. Let me ask you this too, Pair. If you get the UConn Iowa State game, the North Carolina Arizona game, the Purdue versus Tennessee game, and the Houston State game, of those 4 games, which would be the most exciting Saturday or Sunday of the 4 potential Elite 8 games we've picked?
UConn and UNC.
Oh, so the UNC Arizona game you'd say would be the most exciting game?
My bad. UNC Arizona game.
UNC Arizona. Yeah, that's what we think too. So yeah,
I'm here for the drama though.
Yeah.
I'm here for the drama.
Yeah. I will be absolutely shocked if these games are blowout. Like any of these games are blowouts. Like that. This is going to be the most exciting Sweet 16 and potentially Elite 8 we've had
in a long time.
In years. So yeah. Carolina versus Arizona because of the history with Love per Larry. Yeah, I agree, Larry. I think that game has the potential to be the best game of the Elite Eight games because of the drama, where it's going to be played, what's on the line. Arizona was even being considered as a 1 seed. You could virtually say there were 6 teams in play for those 1 seeds: UConn, Houston, North Carolina, Purdue, Tennessee, and Arizona, and they're all alive still in the Sweet 16. And realistically, it could be one of those 6, in my opinion, that cuts down the nets. If you're looking for a darling to at least get to the Final Four, a la Florida Atlantic and San Diego State last year, it's NC State. If you're looking for another Miami type team that had a good season and has kind of turned it on at the right time, but kind of runs into a buzzsaw in the Final Four, you could argue Duke or Illinois as a 3 seed or what have you that gets there if they beat UConn. I just think that UConn, Carolina, and Houston are a cut above, especially defensively, all 3 of those teams, and they can score. And it's really up to which Purdue team shows up. That's really what. And the thing is this: if Purdue loses to Gonzaga, I like Tennessee against Gonzaga in that matchup too. I mean, like I said, I think this is Tennessee's team year to at least finally break through to the Final Four. I'm trying not to be a homer, trying not to be an alum, but I just think there's something different, and they got the stinker out of the way against Texas in the second round, and they could shoot hot in Detroit. They really could. Why not Tennessee shoot hot for a change? So we talk about all these other teams having all-world games. It might be Tennessee's turn. You never know. So, yeah. UConn or Arizona, the biggest spreads. Yeah. And realistically, but you want, Michael, I get it. It's 11.5. This UConn team is good. They're coached very well. Very well. And I hate UConn. I mean, please. I can't stand them.
Hate you.
But
I love the way they play though.
Yeah, but I got to give respect and dap when it's due. And until somebody proves it otherwise, it really has been the UConn Invitational Tournament. They've won their last 6 games by double digits, and they've made teams look silly. And I am standing by this until they prove me wrong. This is the year of back-to-back. It started with the West Rebels in football. It's carried over to the Chiefs in NFL. It's carried over to Alcoa and Fulton in basketball here locally. And I said it before we picked the games last week. This is UConn's tournament to lose. And I think North Carolina's probably the only team that could stop them. I really think that, because I don't think Houston's got it. I don't care if Duke shoots lights out. They're not going to do it. They don't have an answer for Klingon inside. NC State, nice story. Marquette. I'd love the Vols to be the one to do it, but, Purdue, even with Zach Edey, they'd run him. I don't know. They'd get him in foul trouble. They'd find a way to get him in foul trouble. Gonzaga, we've seen that matchup before. Connecticut embarrassed them last year in the Elite Eight. Creighton, Connecticut's won all 3 times, or both times they played in the Big East. So, again, I think that one of North Carolina or Connecticut is probably going to be your national champion when it's all said and done. Obviously, we'll talk about these games next week. And then, of course, we'll do the Final Four picks and really get into that next week. So, and maybe even have a guest on to talk basketball. So, yeah, for sure. So
definitely, man.
yeah, well, that's all we've got, man. If anybody else has anything, let us know. Otherwise, we're gonna call it a night. I mean, it's always been fun. I love talking hoops with everybody. Such a fun tournament. This one, even though there wasn't any real, heartbreaks, last second drama, I think you're really going to be in for some really good basketball in these potential 8 games on Thursday and Friday, and then obviously the 4 games spread across Saturday and Sunday. And Saturday night, just remember those games are on TBS. They ain't on CBS like they traditionally are. And then the games are on CBS on Sunday afternoon, with the Midwest being at 2:10, and then the South going on after them at 5 o'clock. So yeah, 30 minutes in between both games, just to make sure there's not any overlap. So, but that's all I got, man. So yep. So
Great show.
here we go. Larry's gonna bring this heat. Diddy will be locked up by the weekend. They don't even know where he's at, by the way.
Yeah, that junk is crazy, right?
Dude, hey, let me just tell you this. I'm not trying to make fun of nothing. I really am not. But R. Kelly literally just said, "Hold my beer." Honestly, you know what I mean? Like literally to Diddy. I mean, honestly, hold my beer. So, Creighton smoked UConn. Oh, did Creighton win that? I didn't. Well, I know UConn lost to Seton Hall. I know they've lost 3 games this year. I didn't know who the who I guess Creighton did beat UConn that one. I remember that now. You're right about that. Yeah, that's right. That happened in January, if I'm not mistaken, when they played. You're right. Good shot, Lynn. Good shot on that one. So yeah. It was back by around 20. Yeah, and then it's like UConn has not like lived that down. So, but. Well, guys, listen, that's all I've got. Two Pair, you want to lead us out, brother, as you always do, man?
So
So
it is, man. As Rebels with a cause, man. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Throw your dubs up if you're a winner. We'll talk to y'all next week. Peace.
peace. Go Rebels.